Okay, so we got a 2009 Mitsubishi Lancer. This is 2.4 non-turbo. We have a draw. We're getting roughly 20 millivolts. I got my amp clamp around both of the negatives. You can go around with whichever one you want, whatever's easier. The positive's got a whole bunch there. The negatives only got a couple, so I went around that way I can get everything. On our mode right here, we have 100 millivolts is an amp. So what I do is just whatever I'm reading in millivolts, the way I remember it, I just multiply it by 10, and then I get the number of milliamps. So 100 times 10 equals 1000 milliamps, or 1 amp. So I'm at roughly 200 milliamps. So then if I want, I can pull out another meter, but it's steady, so I don't have to worry about that. I'll plug in, where'd you go? Yeah, there you are. Try to do this one-handed. I'll plug my leads back in. Sorry, I'm kind of doing a whole bunch on this car. And I'll just go to the fuses, the ones I can get to. And I'll just go across each terminal. Didn't want that anyways. Trying to do this quickly. It's been a crazy Monday as usual. Okay, and you just go across each one. If you see it read 0, then that means there's no current. And I'll just go down all the way until I find one that shows something. If you see it moving like that, then that means you're not making connection. Sometimes you can think that you're on there, but you're actually kind of on the plastic and it's moving. That's moving too much. If that's the case, just keep playing with it until it stays steady. You'll be looking for something. There'll be for the voltage drop, you'll be looking for a small number, only a few millivolts. And then when you find a fuse that shows a few millivolts, that means it's active, and you can go through a chart and you can translate that to how many milliamps are going across it. And keep in mind, if we look through our amp clamp, we're drawing roughly around 200 milliamps. So we will look to see, yeah, we're roughly around 200 milliamps. We'll look to see if we can find a fuse that has a voltage drop that translates to close to that, and I'll let you know when I'm there. And it might be hard to see, but there's a blue 15 amp fuse right below that 30. That was the only one that had any voltage drop across it when I was checking with both leads. It's really difficult to get in there. You just kind of do one at a time, hold it, and then get the other one and hold it. And I saw a 0.8 of a millivolt that went across there. So when I go to look up on the chart, it does translate to a close enough draw that I can reasonably assume that's the whole draw. So then I also have to look up to see what that is and what it feeds, and I'll show you how I did that. Okay, so say you find a fuse that has a voltage drop across it. That would indicate that the circuit is active. We do have current flowing through that fuse, but now you want to find out, is that our whole issue? Keep in mind, most vehicles will have an ECM backup fuse that will provide a little bit of power to it at all times. You know, they might use 50 milliamps, something like that. So you want to know, is this our whole issue? Can we focus on this? So there's this handy chart. I believe Power Probe is the one that made it. What I used to always do is I just would Google Power Probe fuse voltage drop chart, and I would come up with this right away. It does seem like it's no longer on Power Probe's website. I found a link for it on Power Probe's website, and then from Google, I clicked it, and it came up no longer available, or whatever the error was. but it wasn't there. But I did find a backup copy of this on some other website, so I'll post a link in the description if it's still active. But anyways, what you do is you find the type of fuse. So it starts off with we got a J-case fuses. Well, we're a mini, so we'll scroll down, keep scrolling. These are maxi fuses. We keep scrolling because all these fuses will all have different filaments in here, so they'll all have different characteristics. So we find ours. Okay, mini fuse. We're a blue 15 amp mini fuse, and our measurement that we measured was 0.8. So we just go across, well, if I could do it, to where our line is. So we're blue 15 amp mini fuse. Over here we're 0.8 of a millivolt. So this says we are roughly 175 milliamps. Now keep in mind, this is kind of rough estimate. You know, our meters aren't going to measure microamps that accurately. You know, your leads aren't that accurate. You know, you could get dirt in there, yada yada yada. So it's just a general kind of guideline, but we know we're, you know, roughly 200. You know, I got measurements of about anywhere from 180 to 200 milliamps of current coming out of that battery. And if this chart says that 0.8 millivolt of a voltage drop correlates to 175 milliamps, then if we subtract whatever we're reading, even if it was as much as 200 milliamps, if we subtract 175 from that, then we're left over with 25 milliamps, and that's an acceptable reading. So we can reasonably assume that this is our entire issue, and that as soon as we figure out this problem, then the whole draw will go away and this thing will start in the morning. Because keep in mind, you don't really want to pull out fuses when you're checking for parasitic draws on modern cars, because you know what, there's so many computer modules. You pull out a fuse, you'll wake something up. Worst case scenario, you pull out a fuse, you might cause a module to fix itself as soon as you plug it back in, and maybe the draw is gone and now you're left, you can't find anything because the problem's not acting up. So then you got to give it back to the customer just for it to happen again, and then they lose faith in you, and. So nice non-intrusive way, you just put your voltage leads on either side of the fuse, you read your measurement in millivolts, and you find it on a chart and go across, and it'll give you a rough idea. Okay, so we saw a blue 15 amp fuse, a mini fuse directly underneath a green 30 amp ATO fuse is our problem. We saw a 0.8 millivolt draw on it, and translated roughly to, you know, 180, 190 or so milliamps. So I'll show you what I do to find out what is what. Sometimes you can't always go by an owner's manual. You know, owner's manual might not even be in the car, and sometimes when it is there, I have seen cases where the fuse number from an owner's manual doesn't jive with what's on wiring diagrams that we have. So this is one of the things that I actually use ProDemand for. You select the vehicle. Can you guys see that still? 1 second here. So you select the vehicle, you go up here, one search, go down to service manual. And this is one thing that ProDemand is really good for, better than all data. All data doesn't always have this. Then you go to electrical, fuses, and circuit breakers. It's not an evolution. And we go with identification, and we scroll down. We are in passenger compartment. So then if we scroll, we scroll, we scroll, we scroll. Yeah, that looks like it. So we zoom in a bit. You guys can probably see that. Where's the scroll up there? Okay, so this looks like it was the green ATO fuse, and then this one here looks like the one that we were after. Fuse number 7 is what it says. So if this is correct, 7 should be a 15 amp fuse, a mini, and 4 should show up as a 30 amp fuse. So now I'll close out of this, Scroll down some more. So 4, we do see, yeah, that is a 30 amp fuse. And then 7 is a 15 amp fuse. Okay, so we can reasonably assume that 7 is the correct number, and then it tells you some stuff that it runs. So at this point, I will, once I know for sure what fuse number it is, I will then just go to look up the wiring diagrams to see what it feeds. The power distribution wiring diagrams is what I'll start with, and for that I usually use AllData, just because AllData has access to OE diagrams. But I always start with non-OE first, so I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so with the Lancer, on AllData, just diagrams down to non-OE, and I'll start with power and ground distribution, power distribution, and let's make this bigger. 1 second, I might need both fingers. Okay, so we got it bigger. So we're looking for fuse 7, which is inside the vehicle. So we keep looking. Fuse 7 is a 15 amp. Fuse 7. And fuse 7. Oh no, that's engine compartment. That's not what we want. We want inside. What's this say? Anything? No. Wait. I must have missed it. That's the last page. So, oh, what was that? Fuse 7, and this says behind left end of dash. Okay, fuse 7's 15 amp, and it just says sound and navigation systems. It is always nicer when it kind of shows all the individual branches, but we'll go with radio, the radio wiring diagram, because I find a lot of times, even factory, not just aftermarkets, but a lot of times factory radio units create draws, and what I'll find, you might find a CD stuck in it or something, but they cause draws too. So we will go back to vehicle, we'll go back to diagrams, background, back down to non-OE, radio. Does not have the nav screen, does not have an amplifier, so just without. And fuse 7, scroll down here, goes to this box, so that's our radio and CD player. Then we keep going down, and splices over here, satellite radio tuner if equipped, and then the center panel unit also is on that fuse. I don't usually find that center panel units are draws. I find more often than not it's the radio and CD player. So we'll go after those to start with. We'll just unplug each and see if the draw is still there. So I'll take you inside the car for that. Okay, so for the radio, first you want to remove this trim piece that goes all the way across. Most of these are just clips that you just get in behind there with a tool. Ideally you want to use a non-marring. 1 second here. Ideally you want to use something like this to get in behind there and just pop. Down in behind here, you pull this back a little bit. There is a single screw that holds it in right there. You get that out of the way, and then once you get that out of the way, then you can do the same thing with this whole piece right here. You can kind of go in up the top right up here, and you just kind of pull it all around the sides just carefully. It is only held in with these style clips, and this is the front panel. So I unplugged it right there because this could be a source. This is also on that fuse. I unplugged that and I didn't see any change. The next is the radio itself. It has 4 screws. There's a screw here, one in there, and on the same thing on the other side. Just Phillips screws, and then I pulled that forward, and then pulling it forward, I was able to get behind there and unplug both of its connectors. But same thing, that didn't change the current at all. We still had the 180 milliamps. So then I had to look online and find out what else was on that circuit. Okay, so we unplugged both the radio and the front faceplate, and the draw is still there. So now we need to look at that satellite radio tuner, see if this vehicle has one. The wiring diagram didn't say exactly where it was, so we gotta try and find out a location. So what I did was I typed in radio satellite, and I actually spelt it wrong, but I noticed only one thing came up, this battery draw. And reading it, it said there's a draw of 0.280 amp on the battery for a community repair. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute, that sounds pretty close to what I have. So I clicked on it. It says it's good, 0.280 amp on the battery. It takes out the IOD fuse. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, that's sounding familiar. Draw goes away. Took out the radio and the draw is still there. That sounds similar. So then I read this guy, and he says, I just diagnosed 2 Mitsubishis a few weeks back with a draw. Had the same amount of draw, performed voltage drop on all the fuses, and found fuse number 7, 15 amp on the interior fuse panel, just like us, huh? The circuit is radio navigation, unplugged all components one at a time, found the Bluetooth cell module to be the cause. About the glove box. Well, that's interesting to note, but I'm still after that satellite tuner, so, but we'll keep that in mind. So I just type in sat light, kinda two L's, but whatever. Apparently I can't spell today or the other day. And okay, we go down here, radio tuner. Okay, yeah, this is us, satellite radio, removal and replacement. Okay, so here's the behind the glove box. There's the panel for the cabin air filter. Blowers down there, so it'll be just on the right. Big box there. Okay, so let's find that. Let's unplug that and see if that's our draw. Okay, so we just lowered down the glove box, and you just push these 2 tabs in, one on either side. You get it to clear here either side, just like any other glove box. I pulled it right out. It falls right out. Once you let it fall all the way down, it'll come right out. And this is the satellite radio receiver. If your vehicle has one, you don't need to unplug the antenna. I just unplugged it just because I was expecting this to be it. And I just unplugged the connector, but there was no change. Okay, so I just finished unplugging the satellite radio tuner, and draw is still there. So how about that community tip about the hands-free module? This guy does have the hands-free, or at least it's got the buttons on the steering wheel for it. So just go up here, we got to figure out where it is. Said it was above the glove box somewhere, but I couldn't really see anything, so just type in hands free. There we go. We don't want diagrams. We don't want testing. Service and repair. There we go. Okay, so tucked up underneath. This is starting to look familiar. Starting to give me major deja vu. I'm pretty sure I've changed one of these before for this exact reason. And I'm pretty sure that it'll be about the same thing. So, before I even go to find it, let's grab the heat gun. Because the last one that I changed, even though the car had been off for quite a while, that sucker was hot to the touch. Wonder if this one will be the same. Let's find out. Okay, so now we pull down this cover. At the top there's the 4 Phillips screws, and then right there is a trim clip, and that would be that guy right there, and then the 4 Phillips screws kind of just go in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. That gives us access to the hands-free module, the Bluetooth module that the guy said on a tip that we saw. Come to think of it, I kind of remember doing one of these before. So if we look over on the steering wheel, we do see it does have Bluetooth buttons. And I remember we got our handy dandy thermal imager. I remember doing one of these before, and it is right up there. Let's get that glare out of the way. I don't know how well I'll be able to do this without the glare coming. So if you can kind of see that, there's the box right there. There's a connector. I don't know if I can get this to focus. That's kind of not bad. And it is warm to touch. And I remember the last one I did, same thing. It was hot. Let me see if I can't get... I don't know how well you'll be able to see that. But you see that big yellow I can't really see, but we'll take some pictures. Hit it. Alright, so that showed 113 degrees. Background is about 50 or so. Well, should be less, or a little warmer than that, but yeah, the box itself is 113 degrees. This vehicle hasn't been running since this morning. Same thing too. Same as the last one I did. We're just gonna unplug that. Get that connector out. I don't know if this guy uses the Bluetooth hands-free on the steering wheel. I think these seem to be an issue. So it seems like maybe either trying to get a used one, but you'll probably run into the same thing, or you just go without. I don't know if the guy uses it. There are other Bluetooth options. There's aftermarket Bluetooth options available. You could try something like that. This is held on with... I know I can't get that to focus because the lighting outside, and we're up. There are 4 screws there that hold that unit up. So I might just end up taking it down to try and unplug it. But anyways, we'll unplug that, and then we'll check to see that meter again. See if the current's changed any. Okay, so we got it out. It's been unplugged for a while. Had a whole bunch of people running in. But now that it's on the ground, you should be able to see it a little bit better. If I can get that glare out of the way. Yeah, you can see how much it's lighting up compared to the background. Let's try and get that in a better spot. There we go. So you can see right now it's 98 versus 89 or so. It was at 115, but yeah, it's been unplugged for about 20 minutes. And that's our problem. I've encountered that before on these. So we're just going to leave it unplugged for now. We'll put everything back, see what the guy wants to do. If he uses it on the steering wheel, then we can try and get a new one. If he wants to get some other kind of aftermarket Bluetooth setup going, then you could just use that. Let's go over to the meter, double check, make sure that it's not using anything anymore. Okay, and we are good. Let's just confirm that. Perfect. That is the end of that.